You're listening to the Social Spitball Show on blogtalkradio.com with your host, Bram Sarkowski, and featuring Barbara D'Antonio and George Fisher. Now, let's rejoin the conversation. All right, we're back, and as I mentioned before the break, Chairman Voller is on the line, and George spoke before the break about his a couple of articles he wrote. It's a 3-part series. Is going to come out with, I guess, part 3.
Well, there's going to be
there's
going to be a part 3, but the part 3 is going to be a unity. And what I want to talk about is how to bring the North Carolina Democratic Party back together, how to stop this bickering, and how we can actually move forward, maybe from the ground up in a grassroots effort, I think, like Chairman Voller wants to do. And I think we can do it.
Yeah.
It's like Chris was saying, we need to get away from the corporate. We need to get away from the big donors, and we need to galvanize and motivate the people from the bottom up.
People powered, yeah.
People power. Anyway, if I'm elected, which I never would run, we got Chairman Voller on the phone, and we're going to have him on.
He's on.
Oh, is he on?
Chairman Voller, are you on the line?
I am.
Okay. All right, you're live.
Oh, Chairman Voller, let me ask you a couple of questions. Last Sunday, you fired the ED, and you had a conversation with Dr. Ben Chavis. Is that correct?
Yeah, last Sunday, we terminated the ED, and I've been having conversations with Dr. Chavis off and on all the way back to when I was advocating for the pardon for the Wilmington 10. And conversations about getting involved in North Carolina. I'd gone to a number of events with him, especially given the 50-year anniversary this year, or last year, and of course what's coming up this year. So Ben and I have traveled together, worked around North Carolina together, and it has been a desire of his to come back to his home state, a place where his family has a long and illustrious history going back hundreds of years, and a place where he has a personal history of organizing people, getting folks involved, and getting people to feel positive and good about community action.
Well, let me ask you this. Since the events, what transpired with the Executive Council and with the SEC to bring in for a 30-day period interim ED? How did that happen?
Okay. Last year when we had Tammy Bruner and I came in, of course, the party itself needs to reform how, and people don't usually argue with me on this point, how it does its elections and how it the transfers power. As you know, I was a four-term mayor, and even though I elected not to run this year and backed the fellow that did win, who had been our town manager previously before he retired, there's an overlapping period when you're a lame duck and there's a transition of power. We do it where you go to a state executive committee meeting, and there'll be 600-plus voters in attendance, and as soon as the election happens, you pass the gavel, and there's zero transition. And not only that, you're coming in there with the potential that there's all kinds of things you don't know that's been happening. Obviously, in our case, a major election in 2012 where upwards of $20 million ran through the party when you add up all the various campaigns, including OFA. And you're suddenly the inheritor of these legacies with very little information other than what you've been told on what's been occurring. And that's something that needs to change. So when I came in last year, I eventually terminated the previous ED. One of the reasons is I had discovered, this is separate than her, but there had been this issue where there had been abuse of party resource, including LexisNexis and research that had been done on people running for office, Democrats, essentially people from inside the House researching Democrats, which they should not have been doing, including me when I was running for party chair. I had kept that within an internal review committee, but in light of the recent last week, I've just decided there's really no reason now just to not put sunlight to all these things. When that happened, there had been no real mechanism for handling the interim, and I named myself interim because there is no such thing as, in our party document, an interim is essentially a position that's just supposed to exist for an ephemeral amount of time. And I agreed after I had mediation with some of our party members that we would have a different procedure in the future. So this time around, we call within 48 hours, call a meeting due to the exigent circumstances of the termination on a Sunday, wanting to protect party resources, make sure that you lock down all the IT and communication, which is why that was done. Casey Mann was named the interim. It had been, discussed that Dr. Chavis would be the interim. And once I got locked into Casey as the interim, the way our documents read, you can't hand off one interim to the next. So really we were going into a meeting essentially within that first 48 hours to deal with making the interim permanent or just approving the interim. And what was done is they decided to make Casey the acting executive director for 30 days while we come back to have a face-to-face meeting.